After the Korean War in the 1950s, a father-son duo traipses to Seoul through the Korean highlands. The father, Woo-Ryong, is taking his sick young son, Yong-nam, to Seoul in the hopes of getting his tuberculosis treated. And after traveling for a long time, they reach a remote village, but the residents of the village seem to be scared of them. However, the village chief doesn't seem to be bothered and even invites them for supper, during which Woo-Ryong tells him that he is a piper. He asks the chief if he would be kind enough to accommodate them for a few days as his son is sick and tired. He then shows him a note in English that reads, "Kiss my ass, monkey," given to him by a Yankee doctor, promising him to cure his son if they reach Seoul by next month. It is nothing but a cruel joke, and the chief, who can't read English either, affirms it is an address. Woo-Ryong presents the chief with a pack of imported cigarettes, and the chief allows them to stay at his house. That day at the village, a birthday celebration is going on when another villager, Mi-suk, a woman who lost her husband and son in the war, brings food for Woo-Ryong and his son. Woo-Ryong is instantly smitten by her and even steps in and plays a melodious tune on his pipe as the kids start enjoying it. But the parents are still reluctant to get too close to an outsider. Mi-suk is busy preparing a feast using eggs, but when she cracks a spoiled egg, all the villagers gather around and the chief declares that Mi-suk has received her shaman spirit. Later that night, Woo-Ryong notices the village is plagued by rats that have grown out of the fear of humans and traps. During the meeting on how to tackle the situation, Woo-Ryong offers to help by using his pipe to lure the vermins away from the village. After some contemplation, the chief offers him a prize of a cow if he is successful in his claims. As the chief and Woo-Ryong walk back after the meeting, the chief asks him not to tell the other villagers that the war is over. The next day, Woo-Ryong roams the village while preparing to deal with the rat menace, and once he's back, he also helps Mi-suk by repairing her roof. While fixing, he sees the chief's son feeding meat to the rats, and in the evening, he reports it to the chief. The chief doesn't seem to be bothered by it and tells him about the time when the menace started. They had bought a cat, but the rats ate the cat and posed a threat to the humans. So to keep them from attacking the humans, they would regularly feed meat to the rats. He further explains that back in the day, when the villagers heard the Chinese army was approaching, they evacuated and hid the lepers and one shaman in a cave. But the Chinese never reached the village, and when the villagers returned to the cave, they found all of them dead as rats had eaten them. Starting the next day, Woo-Ryong prepares 2 special powders and spreads one over the village leading to the cave. One powder will act as a rat repellent and the other will lure the rats, eventually leading them to the cave where Woo-Ryong plans to trap them. Woo-Ryong starts a fire after carefully inspecting the wind direction and burns the repellent powder to get the rats out of their hiding spots. At the same time, Mi-suk is also forced to perform the purification ritual using the bells. Suddenly, the villagers see the rats pouring out of the houses, following the powder line to the cave. Once the rats enter the cave, Woo-Ryong blocks its entrance with a boulder, thus trapping them. When he returns to the village, everyone cheers and prepares a feast where Yong-nam and Woo-Ryong show a virtuoso display of a musical piece. Once everybody is gone, Woo-Ryong and Mi-suk sit alone to talk, trying to keep themselves calm amidst the feeling blossoming in them for each other. Woo-Ryong invites her to go to Seoul with him and his son to start a new life, and even though she's too afraid of the war, she doesn't want to lose out on the possibilities outside the village. The shy interactions and the giggles between the two are not hidden from the chief, so he calls Mi-suk and threatens her against leaving the village, reminding her of the promise she had made when she first arrived in the village, starving. When Mi-suk shares her inability to carry the duties of a shaman, the chief is not ready to listen to anything and says she needs to keep acting because the villagers believe that the rats came because of the shaman's death. He then steps on her leg, spraining it as a warning for going against his wishes. In a flashback, it is revealed the village was a settlement for lepers who had been driven away from their respective villages, but the shaman took them under her wing, and gave them a place to stay. As the war started, villagers came to the area, starving and asking for a place to stay until the war was over. Back in the present, the chief intends to keep the villagers in the dark about the end of the war to keep them under control and prevent them from leaving the village. He has also started to see Woo-Ryong as a threat, and to put a stop to his growing popularity among the villagers, he calls the males of the village and, taking advantage of their naivete, instills doubts in their minds about the piper. Jealous of Mi-suk's closeness with Woo-Ryong, the chief's son also gaslights the males into believing that Mi-suk plans to leave with Woo-Ryong and abandon her shamanistic duties, and asserts Woo-Ryong to be a communist who brought the rats. This also allows the chief to back off from paying the promised reward to Woo-Ryong for his petty greed. When Mi-suk agrees to go with Woo-Ryong, his happiness is beyond comprehension, and he says he'll get the prize money from the chief and the three will leave for Seoul as a family. But Mi-suk dissuades him from going to the chief, fearing the consequences if the chief comes to know about their plan, but he goes anyways. Woo-Ryong steps out of Mi-suk's house and finds the village residents in a meeting, so he joins in, and the chief shows him his prize money but refuses to pay as a dead cat is found, implying the rats are back. When Woo-Ryong reaches out to take the money, the chief's son chops off Woo-Ryong's 2 fingers and hurls them in the grass. The chief rummages through Woo-Ryong's bag, takes out the map and note from the Yankee doctor, and alleges that Woo-Ryong is a spy. After hearing the commotion, Yeongnam rushes to his father, crying after seeing his father's plight, and Mi-suk follows. The villagers drag Woo-Ryong, calling him a spy, and when they see Mi-suk, she also condemns him and affirms he is a communist, only to save herself from the chief and his ways of punishing her. Seeing the only person he trusted the most turn against him, Woo-Ryong's heart breaks and he gives up defending himself. Above that, the chief takes away his flute and tears off the note, making Woo-Ryong wail, as he thinks it was the only way he could have reached the doctor who could have treated his son. As the villagers get ready to throw Woo-Ryong out, Mi-suk returns in a trance-like state but has been stabbed in the stomach. She prophesizes that in a day with no son, they will all die, and their children will be left to live or die. That will be decided by fate. She yells the visitor has come and lets out a scream before she falls back and passes away after losing too much blood from the stab wound. We're again taken into a flashback where the villagers had locked the lepers in the cave only to become rat food, and had locked the shaman along with them after she allowed them to stay in the village. Devastated by this treachery, she prophesied the exact words that Mi-suk had spoken before the villagers burned her alive, which marked the beginning of the rat infestation. At present, the chief adds poison to the rice bowls and packs it into Woo-Ryong's knapsack to prevent them from creating trouble for him anymore. The villagers then throw the father and the son out of the village, and the chief tells him he has packed some food and money for them and asks them never to show themselves in the village again. Woo-Ryong and Yeongnam walk the entire night, and in the morning, exhausted from the walk and blood loss, Woo-Ryong sleeps under a tree. Meanwhile, Yeongnam goes through their things in the knapsack, but when he can't find his father's flute, he returns to the village to retrieve it. When Woo-Ryong wakes up, he calls out to Yeongnam, but he is nowhere to be found. It is already dark, and Yeongnam is returning to his father when he feels hungry and eats the rice ball he took with him, and as a result, he dies of poisoning. Woo-Ryong finds his son's lifeless body clutching onto his pipe, and he lets out a blood-curdling wail. Woo-Ryong is full of despair for the villagers who took away his everything, and he seeks vengeance. After lighting his son's body on a funeral pyre, he covers himself with a special powder he created to attract the rats, severs his remaining 2 fingers as bait, and opens the entrance of the cave to let the rats out. He then starts playing his flute and leads them back to the village, where they devour all the adults, including the chief. The next day, only the children are left in the village. scared and crying for their parents. But when they hear Woo-Ryong playing his pipe, they follow him, and he takes them to the cave where he has trapped the rats. He sends the kids inside the cave and seals the entrance with a boulder and stones before looking directly at us, leaving us wondering if it was the prophecy or a father's love that led him to take such an action. And that's a wrap for this movie recap. Thanks for watching.